Hey everyone, welcome to this month's RECP Radio. Our hot topic is recruiting. So when you're looking for new talent and people to hire and partner with you in industry, who are you looking for? Where do you find them? Et cetera, et cetera. And our team is excited to share some of our experiences with you today. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. This recording is the exclusive property of Real Estate Closing Path. All video files and commentary shared during this session belong to RECP and may be used in future trainings or marketing promotions. A little bit about who we are if you're new to us. We are the third branch in a suite of organizations owned by one woman, Marianne Harris. She started in the industry 25 years ago with Positively Balanced, which provides third-party escrow account reconciliation services. In 2020, she launched Positively Closed, which provides remote closing support solutions. And then we are Real Estate Closing Path. We are the training branch of the organization, and we have workshops covering all different aspects of the closing process. And this slide shows a list of those workshops. Any of these can be presented as a lunch and learn, and then we can also provide any kind of custom training to meet your needs, whatever that may be. So we encourage you to reach out to us at info@realestateclosingpath.org, and we'd be happy to conference with your team about how we can support you in your training needs. We also invite you to follow us on social media. We have a presence on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, wherever you like to network professionally. We invite you to follow us to keep in touch of what's next. I also want to go ahead and introduce our team. We have three very unique perspectives that we bring to this podcast. First, we have Sandi Donaldson. She is our resident expert in that she has been in the industry for over 40 years. She has experience in mortgage and real estate settlement. She has worked with large and small firms and engaged in all aspects of the closing process. She is known for her wit and wisdom and has collaborated on all of the curriculum development here at RECP, and she has led instruction since the beginning. So glad to have you, Sandi. I am Janis Gaines. I am the outsider perspective because I have not had a career in the closing industry. In fact, most of my career was in education. So I was brought on to bring some structure around the curriculum development. I help host the monthly podcast, and then I've overseen things like the accreditation process in Georgia, Florida. We're looking at Indiana next, possibly Texas. We are looking at expanding nationally as time allows. And then certainly I've enjoyed networking with students, guest speakers, and other leaders in the industry. And then our third perspective is the next generation, Pierre Boulogne-Glavin. She is our assistant trainer, head of marketing. She was actually in our very first training back in 2021. So we'll tell her story of recruitment and how we found her, because we are so grateful to have found her and brought her on board. After training, we sent her to work in the industry in different positions, but then we eventually brought her back. And so she's been our assistant head of marketing and has been the perfect person to do so, knowing it from the inside out. All right, let's dive in here. Recruiting. How do you find great talent? Well, our first tip would be to think of a broader perspective, maybe a slightly nuanced viewpoint of what you're looking for. We would say to hire a teammate versus an employee. And I would love for you to talk about this, Sandi. What's the difference?
Well, certainly we want everybody in the process to feel like their part is important and that they're part of the big picture. No piece of the pie is less important than any other. So we want to make sure that everybody understands that, and everything is everybody's job. You know, we hire folks to do a particular part of the process, but when we get busy on one end or the other, everybody pitches in, and we want somebody that wants to be a part of that team, not just I'm going to clock in, do my bit, and clock out, but we want somebody that wants to be part of what's going on. They're aware of what other people are doing and are seeking how they can pitch in and help.
Yeah.
They're helpful, and they're focused on building relationships internally with our staff and externally with our clients and customers. We want somebody that's looking to continue to build those relationships with other people.
Yeah, that's well said. And it's such a subtle difference. Instead of seeing yourself as, okay, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, and so I'm looking for someone to be under me, but it's more like who can be right beside me, or whatever team you are building, who can really, hold their own and work together. And my background was in playing soccer. And so you definitely have people who have a very specific role, with a forward who is on offense, or a halfback or fullback on defense, and they need to be able to hold that position well and do their part. But then when it's game on and the ball is headed towards the goal, you need everybody to drop back, right? You need everybody to step in and be that defensive position for a minute. And so someone who can have that mindset, who can hold their role, but then also kind of pull in and be support in other roles as needed. And so that takes a very unique mindset. I agree. Pierre, do you have anything you want to add here?
So in terms of being a team player, it kind of depends on what sport you're playing. Like when you're recruiting somebody, I think as the employer, you have to have a very specific idea in mind of exactly what you want that person to do, or who you're bringing along. Have very clear, identifiable role for them to fill. I often see job postings and have had friends get into jobs where it was listed as one thing, but it really turns out to be something very different, like an entirely different sport. As somebody joining a team, you want to make sure that you know what position you're playing and what exactly is expected of you, so that you can be part of it in the most effective way.
Yeah, so true. So clearly defined roles, clearly defined tasks. If you're hiring someone to play soccer, don't expect them to play tennis, right? Something like that. Yeah, so true. All right, hire a teammate versus an employee. While it kind of is the same thing, it might help you shift your perspective and the kind of person you're really looking for. Next tip would be to hire character and personality, then train in skills. So much of the time, you want to have a good connection, a good vibe, a good rapport between people in the office. And then really, if you've got the right person that you can trust, someone with integrity who's going to hold their own, then you can really train them to do just about anything. And then they're worth the investment. What do you think, Sandi?
Well, I used to literally say I could train a monkey, and it's true if they were an agreeable monkey. And if we get somebody who has, like you said, character that we can trust, and somebody that fits in with the rest of the office, personality wise, then we can teach the skills. You can learn to do anything. And so it depends on, what your personality is like. If I'm looking for example, a pre-closer, then I don't want an introvert. If somebody tells me they have a low need for people, you're not my person for a pre-closer, because you have to interact with people a lot. You might be a better fit as a post-closer. So we need to get to know people so we can determine if they're a good fit for what we need, and if the job is a good fit for them, because it's a two-way street.
Right, because that will definitely lead to retention down the road. How happy are they going to be in that particular position? And so I think that's a really good insight to think about. What is their character? Are they a people person? Are they an introvert? And then where can they fit? And the good news is there can be a place for all personality types, right? There is something that each person can do. So be mindful of the team that you're building, and then also try to create that balance. If you have a whole team of extroverts, there might be too much, competition, or too much conversation where nothing is getting done, versus if you had a whole team of introverts, it might be quite the opposites, because someone's got to handle that phone and someone's got to be the one to meet and greet and handle the introductions in the office and at the closing table, etc. So good reminder. What do you think, Pierre?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Sandy said, that really in terms of title, anybody can do it if they do have integrity, initiative, and or a problem solver. What we have listed on the screen here, it is very repetitive in title. Things that you're doing, it's on every single transaction. And if there are extraneous circumstances, you can follow up. If you want to learn more about unique closing circumstances, take our class and offer it monthly. But most of the situations are the same. We're doing the same things over and over again. So if you can learn that, you can do it. If you can do it and you also act like a jerk to everybody, still nobody's going to want to work with you no matter how good you are. So definitely important to be able to have those character skills of being someone who's easy to work with, or just a team player in general, once again.
Yeah. Again, you're looking for that positive vibe for the internal team, the coworkers, people working together, but then someone who's also customer service minded, where they're aware of the networking relationships that they're building long term. So both are really necessary in this industry. Good point. So speaking of, when we talk about what does this industry require? What are the top skills that are really needed to be successful? Again, a lot of people want someone who's already experienced, who's already trained. And in an ideal world, good luck. Maybe you can find that. But if not, at least look for some qualities where they're already kind of leaning in that direction and would be easier to recruit and then train and retain long term. So skills like attention to detail, customer service, reliability. Are they going to show up on time and be dependable? A level of professionalism, office etiquette, ability to multitask, basic computer skills, and then software proficiency. Even if they come to you with some level of computer skills, are they willing to learn more? Are they able to pick up and maneuver around the unique software, whatever your firm or company may have in the industry? So there's, again, always a little bit of a learning curve, right? It takes some time and patience to get that training. Again, we'll often use a car analogy, and just like learning to drive, where everything is a little new and can be intimidating or scary at first, but in time, all of those skills just become second nature, and it's on autopilot per se. But this is a general list of the type of person that you are looking for. So when you're sussing out a resume, or when you're having that one-on-one interview, or maybe it's a team of people interviewing, make sure you're asking questions, leading to certain answers that will help you determine if this person's going to be a good fit. What would you add here, Sandy?
Well, most of these, if you look at them, everything down to the last two are really social skills. How am I able to function in society? And can that translate into my jobs? And the actual mechanics of how we do what we do, what you have to have is willingness. And you mentioned this, Janis. If you're willing, then you can be taught. Like the genie says in Aladdin, he can be taught. At one point, all of us who know how to do certain things did not know how to do them.
Yeah, that's right.
So that all of us come from a place of not knowing. So the difference in knowing and not knowing is being willing to learn.
Right. That's good. A teachable spirit, as they say. That's so important.
Mm-hmm.
Pierre, what do you have to say here?
If I was to add a ninth skill, it would be the ability to prioritize, because that was something that I had to learn in this industry. When you have 100, it feels like 1,000 emails coming at you every day, everybody wants to be the emergency. Everybody wants to be the top of your list, but obviously that's not possible. So having the ability to sift through and not get overwhelmed about what needs to be taken care of today, what can wait for later in the week, what's, even further out than that, and to respond appropriately to all of those situations, I think is a great skill to have for anybody in this industry.
So true. I really appreciate you saying that. So the ability to organize, the ability to prioritize, and then stay on top of those tasks, right? Not to let anything fall through the cracks, do what you say you're going to do and then follow through. So is this the kind of person in front of you when you're looking to recruit? Do they seem to have that level of character, personality? Do they already come with a certain skill set that then is trainable to this unique industry? Good. All right, next slide. So we've talked a lot about the skills and character traits that we're looking for. Now, where are you going to find these people? What are some, maybe shortcuts to networking and finding just that right fit? First one on the slide that maybe you haven't thought of before, but we've had great success with veterans, specifically recruiting at a veterans fair or local, community event that might be in your area. They are usually dependable, disciplined. They already come with a level of respect and just attention to detail, that unique skill set that might be applied in the military. They can then transfer that into an office setting. And so that kind of person, if you can find someone with any kind of military background, it's a high likelihood that they would be a good fit for your organization. Anyone who is family oriented, again, there's certainly that team dynamic in managing and running a family, or that they are committed to a family where they are going to have some long-term staying power. They're not just going to quit the next day because they know they've got a family to provide for. And so that kind of person might be a little more loyal or committed and then staying for the long term. Someone who is a former athlete, again, we've talked about having that team mindset. So if you get a resume and they were team captain of, football, or even just second string on a basketball team, they still have some awareness of what it means to hold their lane and do their part and then be a team player overall. Same thing for club leaders. Maybe it wasn't a sport, but it was participation in some other group activity. Again, they would lean towards that group dynamic and being a good fit potentially for that. And then also college graduates. While that may not be everyone, you don't have to have a college degree necessarily in this industry. Every state has different licensing requirements. So that's going to be for each unique office or company to determine for themselves. But a college graduate, again, shows a level of commitment, of discipline, that they have had to, follow certain rules and regulations and shown a certain level of compliance, which again would be required in this industry. So again, if any of these are on someone's resume, then chances are, 9 times out of 10 that they would come. A friend and I used to use the term cable ready, meaning they're just ready to plug in and they'll be ready to go. They've already got everything kind of queued up and ready to fit right into your office dynamic. Anyone else want to add to this list before we share some of our stories with recruitment?
Well, I was just going to say that while there are certain events that are recruiting events, job fairs, or like we talked about the Veterans Fair and all that, I have found that some of the best people come as you're going in your life, just as you go along, and you may not even need anybody right now, but you meet somebody, you go, well, they'd be a really great fit when I need, and you just tuck that away, and keep it. For example, we know that our founder recruited a spectacular person to our training who is still working as a closer, and has moved up to builder accounts and all of that.
Right.
And she was the manager of Sunglass Hut.
Yeah.
And when Marianne went in to buy a product, she got friendly, great service, help me find what I need, solve the problem. Here's my budget. Here's what those, and you think these are all the qualities that we are looking for in this industry. So sometimes, again, that mom you're sitting beside at the soccer field who's telling you what they used to do, and now they've not been working, but they're looking for a job. Or my niece is about to graduate from college. Well, what's she interested in? So sometimes it's less direct recruiting and more as we're living our life. We meet people that we need to save their information because there may come a point when they're exactly the kind of person we're looking for.
Yes. Agreed. And just having that mental awareness, and sometimes just, having that awareness, the universe will bring the right people to you. Like they say, all of a sudden, if you want a red Corvette, all of a sudden you start seeing red Corvettes everywhere on the road. So maybe, that kind of principle of, putting the wish list out there and then just watching and waiting to see who comes your way and having it tucked in your mind. I think it's a great reminder. Good. How about you, Pierre?
Yeah, I totally agree with Sandy. All of my jobs that I have gotten over the years have been because I was recommended to it or I knew somebody in it. It was really from my network. So networking is, I think, the biggest key to being able to connect an employer to an employee. Like recommend your friends to a position that would be a good fit, or you're looking at your catalog of people that you've met throughout your life first because you already have vetted them to some extent. It's not a completely unknown variable in the situation. So definitely my recommendation to somebody trying to get hired is to network and to make more connections in whatever industry you're looking to go into, because you don't know who knows somebody else who could recommend you here, or knows that there's going to be a position opening here, who can really give you a leg up over just cold applying to everything online, where they can't get an idea of who you are or your best traits.
Right. Sometimes it's not what you know, but who you know, and then who knows someone, right? It could be a chain of, or a ripple effect. It may be a few relationship connections down the road, but if you trust this person and they recommend someone, then that can be an easier onboarding process. So I know we may have a few stories to tell. So I think I will share a little bit about how we recruited Pierre. I mentioned that she had been in our very first training program way back when. So we were just a brand new program and looking for people to train. And then we had zero reputation in the industry. And so it was a lot of just a new process. Who are we looking for and where are we going to find them? And we found Pierre in a pretty unique way. In fact, I was brought on first to the company. I knew the owner, Marianne Harris, and so I was moving to a new side of town and found a rental place. And it turned out that Pierre and her mother are my landlords. And so that was my initial connection with Pierre. And so I just liked her immediately and thought she was so friendly through the whole rental process. And then, of course, one morning, I locked myself out of my said rental place. And I had to call her at the crack of dawn, or text her, I believe. I texted you and I was like, oops, I'm locked out. Can you help me out? And I was so embarrassed, out the door and ready to go to work, but had left my keys in, so couldn't get in the car. And I just sat there for a minute thinking, okay, there's a few ways I can handle this. I can just feel stupid and be embarrassed and, apologizing that I've had to make her get up and come help me and feeling so irresponsible for my little mistake. And then I thought, oh, or I can turn this into a positive. And I thought, well, maybe this has happened for a reason. And sure enough, I had a little flip card or business card in my briefcase at the time. And when she arrived to let me into my home, I said, hey, I think I'm supposed to give this to you. We are running a new training and just think about it. Let me know. And sure enough, she texted me later. She was looking for a transition in her career and certainly already being involved in real estate on some level as a manager and having some rental properties. And she was interested to learn a little more. And it just was one of those kind of divine intervention or divine coincidence kind of moments where my mistake kind of led to her opportunity. And then it really has been a good long-term fit for both of us. And so we have a unique dynamic where she is my landlord, but I'm her boss. So she could out me at any moment or I could fire her, but not really. But it's been a good fit, which we are grateful for. Anyone else have a story they want to share?
Well, I know you've heard me share before that I've trained somebody that literally the day before was a bartender. My attorney met her the night before at an event that she was attending. And again, she was friendly and courteous and energetic and looking for something that she didn't have to work at night. And so the very next day, she comes into our office and we hired her. She had the perfect personality for a pre-closure. She had no idea about any of the process. She didn't own a home, had no idea about buying a home, but she was willing, and she did have the right personality. Her personality was the right fit. And so because of my attorney's interaction with her the night before, it had caused her to be on our radar when she wouldn't have been before.
That's good. Good story. Here, you have anyone that you want to share?
Yeah. This is not in our specific industry, but just in terms of like interviewing and being in front of people in general, trying to seek out a job. My husband, when we were on our honeymoon, we were in Japan and he got a response from a job that he had applied to, and they wanted him to do an online interview. So obviously we were in Japan, company was in America. So the time difference, it was like 4 a.m. when they wanted him to do this interview. He really didn't want to do it. And I was like, just do it. It's fine. Like, we're on our honeymoon. It's not like, we don't have deadlines. We're just having fun out here. So we can get up early and just do it. And then it'll be over with. And you don't ever have to wonder what would have been if you had not done it. So got up super early. I went downstairs and watched the sunrise over Mount Fuji. So beautiful for me. He did the interview, and after that, they did call him back, and they had specifically remembered him because he was the guy that interviewed from Japan. Like, he was the one that stood out to them because he had this special circumstance going on. So I think don't be afraid to have quirky personality or something special going on when you're interviewing somewhere. I think the idea is that you want to be as normal and straight-laced as possible, but you might actually fit in somewhere better because you stand out against the competition for things that don't even have to do with the job.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. I think I've even heard Sandi say before to be willing to think outside the box. You might have one opinion in mind of, I just think I'm looking for this type of person. But be open, because if another type of person comes your way, like you just said, maybe it is the perfect fit, and just be open to considering that. I'd love to share a few stories, at least from our training perspective, because we have trained some people and then found out later they were not a good fit for the industry. And Sandi, I'm going to ask you, who stands out to you that okay, this person just was not a good fit?
Well, interestingly, we talked about this person this morning, but we have someone in our class and they do really well. They pick up on all the technology. They understand the concept. everything is great. It's like our star student
Yes.
in this particular class. And then they go to work for one of our partner firms and they start coming in late or don't show up at all, don't call out, become completely unreliable. And so every perfect performance is outweighed by the fact that you're not dependable.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how good you are at your job if they can't depend on you to do your job.
Yeah, so true. And I remember just being really sad for this particular individual because even their employer had said, wow, this person's a rock star, but we just never know if they're going to be there or leaving. And just like you said, undependable. So I think it's important to also keep in mind when you are recruiting people that this industry does have a very unique timeline that people have to respect, meaning it's going to be the rare exception that anyone's going to get a Friday off because a lot of closings are happening on a Friday, or end of the month is heavier than beginning of the month, or certain times of year. Summertime is almost like Christmas rush in the real estate industry. And so it's important too that people you are hiring have that kind of awareness and that you share that with them up front, and that that's going to be a schedule and a lifestyle that they can commit to. Here, do you have another story or thought about someone who just does not fit or work for the industry?
Yeah, I'm honestly, okay, I'm going to take some accountability and responsibility here. As much as I mostly worked in pre-closing. I enjoyed doing that, and I still do enjoy the pre-closing process, but that did not give me any sort of creative outlet in my job. So I have a degree in marketing, and I really like creating things like that, making graphics, making campaigns, thinking about ways that we can bring in new people. So even though I feel like I'm good at and can do pre-closing, it's not completely fulfilling to me because it's not touching on that area of my personality where I really want to create things. So I think thinking about that as well, even if somebody has the capability of completing a task, it might not be what is most fulfilling for them. So I've seen a lot of people leave this industry just because it didn't give back to them what they were putting into it. So it's not always the fault of the person joining in, that it just doesn't work out from time to time.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I appreciate you saying that. And it's worth noting that your degree was in marketing, so overall this really was a better fit for you to be in the marketing lane. But then I think it just brought you some more awareness and some of the other projects and things that you had your hand in at the
Absolutely.
time.
I think that that's a great point too, that just because something isn't going to be your forever career, it can play a very important part of where you go. It can be a stepping stone that teaches you a lot. And I think title is useful for almost anybody. Even if you don't stick in this forever, you're probably going to buy a home at some point. So this is good information to know. Or you might work in something adjacent to it, like me. So you never know where life is going to take you.
That's right. You never know. Stay open, stay open. Some other things that we've seen not work out might be the level of stress. We have had a handful of people, just maybe they have a lot of difficulty or drama in their personal life, and then somehow they bring that into the office, and then overall that's just not going to be a good fit, or just can't handle, again, a high stress role. Sometimes if you have a lot of angry clients or frustration in the office, or those difficult phone calls where someone's really anxious or can't keep up with all the urgent requests that are coming their way or whatever, they just don't have that emotional bandwidth to stick it out long term. So we've seen that be a deal breaker for one or two, but again, they might have had the skill, but maybe they didn't have the overall character or personality needed to hang in there for the long term. So it is a very unique process and mindset when you're looking for hiring and recruiting and finding that right person that's worth investing in the training. But we hope that our conversation today has given you some things to think about. Just a reminder that we invite you to follow us on social media, wherever you like to hang out and network professionally. You can find us on all the various platforms at Real Estate Closing Path. And again, if we can help with any of your training needs, please reach out. And we wish you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.